Well, hello there. I'm Mama Jane's husband, and this is
Mama Jane.
And we're currently in the Indian Ocean off the Cape of South Africa. And yesterday we had quite an adventure in Port Elizabeth. And if you'd like to know more about our adventures in Port Elizabeth, watch on. So, Mama Jane, what happened yesterday?
Well, what happened? Now you imagine Africa, don't you? Sunny, hot, sunny. Well, no, it was thick fog yesterday, and the port was
Pea super.
Pea super. The port was closed, so we couldn't make our entry in the morning. We were quite late, delayed by a couple of hours, I think.
Yes, several hours.
And so all the tours were like moved on, you know. Some people have been sat waiting for 3 hours to get on their tour, so consequently our tour was cancelled. Oh dear.
I know. Disaster.
And it was to an elephant park. So yes, it was, but luckily for us we had seen elephants the day before. Not as many, but we had seen them. So what shall we do instead, we ask ourselves.
Well, as ever, Mama Jane's husband has a plan B.
Cunning plan
B. So we wandered off the ship, and our plan B was enhanced when we came across a desk called Share the Bay, and a local organisation run by the government, two lovely staff, and they explained that you can do a walking tour around Port Elizabeth, and that you're escorted, and we need to walk out of the port, and they showed us where to go. This big pinnacle, it's called. What's it called? I can't remember the name. Anyway, so I'll put it on with some photos where we had to go, and the staff, they wore a uniform, so we know. So what colour uniform did
Well,
they
they
wear?
were in like a turquoisey blue uniform, and we were told, you see, Port Elizabeth has got, possibly quite rightly, a very bad reputation for being quite a dangerous place, and not one that we keep being told you do not wander in Port Elizabeth on your own. I don't know, because we didn't. So we took advice and we looked out for these people in the turquoisey blue polo shirts. And now we thought that we would get to this first place and she would then escort us to the next place. But no, it was not like that, was it?
No.
It was fabulous.
Yeah. So when we were walking out of the port, there was somebody at the exit making sure we knew where we were going and what we were doing. So the authorities are clearly trying to make sure that tourists are going to be safe, and that they know what they're up to. So the first pinnacle structure we get to, I walked it up 245 steps to the top, and got some lovely panoramic views. On the way up, there's some bells. Right at the top there's some bells which they're trying to get working again, and then on the way up they've installed some modern plastic bells, which they haven't quite got installed yet, and the idea is you can play a keyboard and the bells ring upstairs, and it's all linked to Nelson Mandela. And on the 67th step there's a plaque commemorating the 67 years of service that Nelson Mandela did to his country. And there's some artwork as you go up, but it's a work in progress. You can see that they're trying to get things geared up to tourism, and to have something available in Port Elizabeth for tourists that's safe and also tells the history of Port Elizabeth and apartheid.
And I didn't walk up all the steps, but outside there's this lovely big frieze, and it shows from early ages of Africa up until today and how things have changed. There's also a poem round the bottom written by somebody whose name I can't remember, but it was very good, very. And whilst Alan was up the thingy, the pinnacle, whatever it's called,
Sentinel or something.
Yeah, I was down outside with this young woman who was then going to take us on the tour, and we had a lovely conversation about all sorts of stuff. Yeah, we were
woman to woman.
We were going to change the world, you know. We could have.
You know what women are like.
We could have done it. Yeah.
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 So then she took us into the square at Port Elizabeth.
Beautiful square.
Beautiful square, wasn't it? Yeah. Could have been an English square though, couldn't it?
Could have, yeah.
Yeah. Clearly imported architecture, and clearly imported architecture. Lovely town hall. We couldn't go in the town hall because there were elections on, but we did get into a very nice library.
Oh, beautiful old-fashioned library, stunning, which actually is shut at the minute for renovation, but they had opened it because there was a cruise ship in, and so we felt very lucky to look around it.
Yeah.
There also was an opera house. Now, I don't know where you're living, but where we live in England, an opera house is usually quite a grand place. The people there considered this very grand, so it was lovely to be able to share, you know, their opera house, and all the famous singers, performers would appear there.
So then we've got a steep climb up Route 67. And on the way you can pass some churches. Now we were on a Sunday, so we couldn't get in to see the churches because there were services on. And if we had gone, we'd have probably stayed. And we wouldn't have seen everything.
No, and the music, every church you could hear, every church had got music.
It was rock and roll.
Rock and roll. Yeah. Lovely.
It was fantastic. And so we wanted to walk up this quite a hill. We got up and there's the flat, and you bought some earrings.
I bought some earrings, not these. Huge area with this enormous mosaic. Yeah.
It was, yes.
Yeah, and each panel of the mosaic described something of Africa, its culture, its history. But what was really beautiful and quite moving, there was a kind of pyramid. Well, it was a pyramid. And this had been built, and the pyramid was built in memory of his wife, Elizabeth. Now, when they were travelling over to South Africa, Elizabeth didn't make it. Only Mr. Dawkins and Child made it, and that is why Port Elizabeth is called Port Elizabeth. And so it was quite a touching thing. Yeah, huge.
Yeah, it was. So that was the pyramid. There was a little market there.
Little markets, yeah.
There's an information centre there.
And the good thing about the market is it was only 4 stalls, I think.
Yeah.
There was no pressure to buy. There was nobody waving things in front of your face. None of that at all. It was just lovely. If you wanted to buy, you buy.
In fact, we had some right banter.
We had a good laugh.
They were all women
lovely.
selling stuff, weren't they? And we had a right banter.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was really positive, nice thing. Yeah.
And the reason the pyramid's built there is that's where the shoreline was. When the people first came, the settlers, English settlers, came to South Africa and they landed. The shoreline was where the pyramid is, quite away from the current port, and it just shows how there's been a natural erosion apparently. Nothing humans have done apparently. It just shows how the sea has eroded backwards, just like it does in the UK.
Scarborough.
Yeah, Scarborough. All the people who are linked behind Nelson Mandela and what he did, the story of freedom really. It's a freeze, I would say, is the best way I would describe it. Yeah,
but you'll see it.
Yeah.
You can
and there's space for you to stand in it, to be part of the story behind Nelson Mandela. So that, and then there's also a sculpture which looks like a bit like a Harrier jump jet, but it's apparently a bird.
And a fish.
And a fish.
Combined.
Is it? I didn't.
Did you not pay attention to it?
I obviously didn't hear that bit. Okay. Anyway, we'll have this all pictured up and everything. And we saw some more colonial buildings that were hotels and now have become houses, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then where did we go next? We wandered across to the
I can't remember the name of it.
Frederick Fort.
Fort Frederick.
Fort Frederick.
Yeah.
Okay, and this was built as the first defensive fortification for Port Elizabeth, and there were cannons and everything there, but it was never fired in anger.
No.
Never needed. But some good views of the current day port. Quite interesting to see. Quite small as forts go. And then we wandered back, and we were lucky enough for this little museum, art museum, to be opened, and another theatre, didn't we? So we had a wander in there. And
old beads, Africans do a lot of bead work, I'm sure you know, and it was stunning. All these different people had made all these different, about this size, weren't they? Little things of beads. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, they all were done, nearly all done by women. There was one man who was involved, but the rest, you could buy a book, this huge book with each piece in, and the story of the artist and how they'd come to create it. But there was this big wall covered with them all. And there were some statues to people who were involved with the struggle against apartheid, Nelson Mandela. And there's a statue to Steve Biko also there, and a few of the others, and I'll put them in as well. And church service had just finished, and
they used that as it wasn't a church, but a church used it. So.
And they were getting ready for another service. So obviously a busy place.
Which actually, Port Elizabeth is not busy on a Sunday. We did see 2 coffee shops, but neither were open in the square. And as I said, this young woman, I can't remember her first name, but her surname was Thomas. She was the most informative person. She was just so friendly and nice, just like talking to your friend, wasn't she? And we discussed families and children and South Africa, and such a lovely time.
And we felt safe all the way along.
So safe. We never saw any trouble. You know, we saw people who looked as if they might cause trouble, but they didn't. They obviously respect this group of tourist guides, and know better than to cause a problem. And it is all free. I mean, it's up to you what you give to the lady at the end, or man, there were some men, but there is no charge, no set charge.
And talking to her, we learned a lot about
real Africa,
real South Africa, and the problems and trials and tribulations almost 30 years after the end of apartheid. So they still got a lot to sort out. 200 years of problems, not going to get sorted in 30 years, is it? That's no comfort to the current generation who are still, suffering. So then we got back to the port, didn't we?
Yep.
And the security of the port is very light security. I suspect that if they wanted to be, they could be quite heavy security. So, behave yourself.
Yeah.
And so we walked back to the ship, and then had a couple of hours left. You by now, the heat had got to you by now, hadn't it,
My
really?
poor old legs.
And your poor legs had enough. So you went for a rest, and I got on a shuttle bus to Summerstrand, which is a local beach area. So NCL were putting on a shuttle, not free, $10 unfortunately, more nickel and diming from NCL. And I took me around to this shopping centre. It's about a 15-minute journey, and it's okay. You get to see a bit more of Port Elizabeth, and lots of industrial parks with shops and stuff like this that are not in the city centre. So everything's a bit like the UK, where things are moving out of the city centre. And you come to this beautiful shopping mall, as the Americans would call it, but shopping centre if you're UK. and it's quite nicely done. It's like if you've ever been to Meadow Hall in Sheffield, it's like the downstairs of Meadow Hall. There are upstairs sections, but they haven't quite opened them yet. But it's nice. It's really nice. All sorts of different shops there, from food, clothing, tech shops. A couple of lovely tech shops there. The beach area. I got out to the beach area, and it's obviously where South Africans go for beach time. There were loads of South African families there, local families having a great time. There are lifeguards, and they're very active lifeguards. They were really blowing the whistle a lot, because it's a really nice place to swim, because it goes down, and it's flat for quite a while before it goes down further, so you can stand in quite shallowish water. Shallowish water, yeah. And then the waves come crashing in. So it's the sort of thing I love doing. And if I ever come again, I'm going to go and play in the waves. And there were lots of families in the water having a great time. There's a lovely pier there which you can walk along, and there's some rocks which are apparently famous, as people take lots of selfies with these rocks as the water crashed across into them. So of course I was obliged to do the same. There's not much in way of place to get a drink right out onto the beach area. There's a Wimpy, a KFC, and a private concern, and they were all pretty busy, so there wasn't many seats, so I didn't go there. This was a very safe area. There was a lot of security around, and making sure everybody behaved.
What you hear about Port Elizabeth is possibly true, that it is a dangerous place to be, but you don't have to be in a dangerous place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You could see areas that were what we'd call in England dodgy, potentially dodgy, so just don't go there. Don't be smart, don't think, oh, I'm all right, because actually you may well not be. And that's what these ladies who were showing us around, these young women, were saying, do not have your cameras all over the place, do not flash your jewellery and your watches, because like in any other country, you're just asking for trouble. It's as simple as that. So don't do it, just don't do it. You felt perfectly safe, didn't you? Yeah. When he got on his own. I also felt safe when we were in the town that we looked at. So it's a lovely place and well worth a visit.
Yeah. So they need support.
They do.
They're trying to get their tourist industry up and running in Port Elizabeth. They're learning. They've got quite a way to go, but they're worthy of supporting.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, and you see the Share the Bay stall when you've docked, try and give them give them a go, and see a bit of real South Africa. So it's a goodbye from
me,
and it's a goodbye from her.
Yeah.
Oh, it's goodbye from me. Yeah. Well, I thought we'd do something different. So
it's just goodbye.
Goodbye.